Hello and welcome back. This is MC1 Gamer bringing you another Unlocking Age of Sigmar video. So this is going to be another bat rep, but it's really more of a demo that I did with Anthony. Anthony, the first game I played with for Age of Sigmar after reading the rules was with Anthony, and it was a little bit of a mess for both of us. I mean, I was really on the fence after that. I had some mixed feelings. We didn't get a lot of rules right. We weren't really taking into consideration what a lot of rules allowed you to do. We were only using proxies for the starter set. It was very new. And like many other people who reported with videos, the first impression is a tough one. Plus, when you have veteran players, you're looking for more as opposed to somebody who's new to the game system itself. And the starter set's really better as an introduction to the game for somebody new. It's not really that great as a carryover from 8th. It really comes off very bland and very chaotic, and it doesn't work as well. You really need to have done it with somebody who has some experience with the game and go through the mechanics with something that's a little bit more familiar, in my opinion. Now, that's just my opinion, just from my experience. Maybe other people have had different experiences, but there's been a lot of people that have seen videos and that have been a mess, and then, of course, they just don't even want to give it a shot. And there's plenty of people in the community that have been turned off just by reading the rules. But I must say, playing the game, and if you've seen my reports, you probably know this, playing the game is a completely different experience. There is so much more to this game. And I know Anthony came away, he's going to do a video, he said, of his own, where he's going to talk about this. He came away with a better impression of the game. And he was impressed in other ways, but of course the big detractor for him is that his main focus is competitiveness. So at this point, and I've admitted this from very early on, the game is not meant for competitive play. It can be twisted and churned and cajoled and, with comp stuff to become more of a competitive type game. It can be, but it would require some heavy lifting. You require a whole new overlay of restrictions. The game as it is now is much better built for narrative play, for connected scenarios. It is not a bad game. It's a good game. And there's a lot of carryover things from 8th, but there's a lot of differences to it. If you're looking for the competitive tournament type play, the organized GT type situation, you're not going to find that with Age of Sigmar. Certainly not at this point in time. And that's where Anthony left it off. He said he had a great time with it, but he'll probably come back to it other than casual play with myself and other people that we know. But if he were to take it seriously, he would come back to it when there was more of a competitive application to the game, because that's his focus. That's what his main thing is. And I completely respect that. And I'm glad that he was able to come down and we had a good time with this game. So I comped this game. I mean, I wanted it to be, no crazy stuff, but I wanted it to be something that's familiar with him. So I said, hey, bring out your Bretonnians. Bretonnians look good in this game. And they are. They are. If you're a Bretonnian player, you have there's hope because you got your new book, but unfortunately it wasn't for 8th. But they really are friggin' tough in Age of Sigmar. And I can only hope that there's going to be new kits, because the whole future, it's a whole new video I should be doing on that, but the future for existing armies or 8th edition armies is going to be new kits and scenario books, which we've already seen. There's a pre-order for that, so I'm going to go over that with if you play Wood Elves and you're big on Treemen and Dryads, you're going to love this next source book because they are crazy. Anyway, so getting back to the Bretonnians. We put up his Bretonnians against my vampire counts, which are Bretonnian themed. You'll see if you don't know. And I just to go back, I wanted to try and put a cap on things so that we could get a sense for the game, so I can demonstrate to him some of the mechanics of the game that I've learned, and we could see how what the transition is from his understanding, which is very deep, of 8th edition into what Age of Sigmar is, the expanded capabilities for movement and the like. So what we decided on is, and here's the layout. We decided to put some terrain down, and we did we didn't even decide what the terrain did. We just left it at that. Because we just wanted it to be where there was terrain modifiers. And just so you know, and I know this is something that people are going to interpret a little differently, the rule as I read it is, if your unit is fully within a terrain piece within whatever the base or zone of what that terrain takes up. If I had a unit that was sitting completely on that hill, it would gain a +1 modifier for where it would be a minus, actually, a subtraction from anybody who's trying to shoot at that unit. Now that may seem a little silly. You're up on a hill. There's no structures. It makes more sense when you're in a maybe a ruined building, or if you're in the forest there. As long as your entire unit sits within the map, the board map that is that terrain piece. On a hill, it may sound like it's well, that doesn't make sense. What if you're in a pond? Well, a pond may make more sense. But the idea with the hill is there, it does make sense, because that's a representation. It doesn't have to be photorealistic. It doesn't have to be like historical gaming. They're just basically saying, and that's the way the rule reads to me, that if you're in a terrain piece, it provides you with that cover. There could be a scraggly hill with lots of different places where these guys could, hide in. The movement to get up there, unless you're a flyer, you've got to measure to the base of that terrain piece and then up that sheer cliff. You can totally traverse it, but that does take part of your movement allotment. I think some people might have different opinions on that. I'm not even 100% sure, but that's how we looked at it. We also looked at shooting in a different way. The rules as written is what I'm trying to apply. So if you have different viewpoints on how you're playing, I respect it. I want to hear it. Just please, one thing, let's not get too obsessive. I've had a couple of viewers, they've gone way overboard in just sending me post after post after post. And after like 20 or 30 posts, it's just enough, okay? I get it. You don't agree with me. I'm fine with that. You play the way you want. We have a difference in interpretations. If that's the case, there's nothing wrong with that. But it comes to a point where if we're just not agreeing, there's no point in beating a dead horse. So I want to hear people's opinions, and I definitely have things that I want people to respond to in this video alone. But if we're not going to agree to it, well, look, I feel strongly about certain points of view. I feel a little shaky on others where I'm not so sure. If we're disagreeing, there's nothing wrong with that. Don't get insulted. But that doesn't mean that I'm right and you're wrong. If I feel strongly and you feel strongly, we're going to play our own game. And I'm sure over the course of time, if we don't see an errata, there'll be a community consensus, and hopefully we'll get something from GW that clears up a few things. I doubt it. I wouldn't hold my breath, but you never know. Maybe they're turning over a new leaf. Maybe it's just a bunch of nonsense. In any case, another one is shooting. It says that in the book, in the 4 pages of rules, it says that you can clearly see through your own units to shoot at enemy units. And if there's a complete blockage, like a building in the way or a hill where you can't see at all, you can't shoot, obviously, because you don't have line of sight. But it says nothing about intervening units. It only makes the distinction that you can see through your own units, which makes sense to me. But perhaps there's a little bit of more of a limitation that we're just not taking into consideration because of the lack of verbiage, and maybe you're not able to shoot through enemy units unless you have an obvious view of that. I hate true line of sight for this reason, because it's also all subjective. And if I see a little pinprick, if I could see the nipple ring of a giant through a hole in between two buildings, I can shoot at him supposedly with a cannon. I don't like that stuff. I think if there's intervening units of similar size or bigger, you should block line of sight. I don't like this whole idea of shooting between the legs of horses. But there really isn't a definitive rule with that. You could interpret it that way, that, hey, you could shoot past your own units, maybe because some kind of magical coordination in the army. But you can, maybe enemy units block line of sight, or block in the intervening you wouldn't be able to do it. I don't know. That's why it's kind of like it's been left open up until this point. So just to play it out, Ant and I, we decided, okay, enemy units within reason are going to block line of sight. If it's infantry units in front, infantry units in front of a archer unit, unless they have elevation of some kind, you're not going to be able to shoot if there's a guy hiding behind them, because they're going to be looking through bodies. Why that's better than being able to see through their own troops is beyond me. I don't know. But that's how we're playing it at this point, just because of the way it's written. I could go either way on this one. So here's the deployment. We put up a couple terrain pieces just to have some impact in terms of maneuvering and whatnot. And as you could see, we tried to keep the comp a little bit low. And what I mean by that is that we only took like 3 main units. I put out there, let's put 2 characters, 2 heroes. Make sure one's a wizard. We'll test out some of the magic. 0 to 2 war machines or monsters. So we could do either or. So it could be like a two trebuchet, or a trebuchet and whatever. In my case, I took a corpse cart and a screaming skull catapult. He just took the one trebuchet. So and we'll see how that has an impact in the game. But we didn't want to go overboard in terms of units. We have like-sized units. He's got 40 men-at-arms and like 30 archers. I've got 40. I've got 40 skeletons and 20 zombies. I've got to think about 15, I think, or 16 Graveguard. He's got 10 questing knights, which are good in this edition, by the way. Age of Sigmar questing knights rock. In any case, it's not crazy. We're not out of control. So here's our and that's, by the way, before I even go further on to the slide, it takes only a minute to discuss these types of things with your opponent. That social contract really comes into play. Look, Age of Sigmar is a faster game than 8th edition, much faster. You can have crazy long-ass games. Once you get the rules down, these games are going to be very much more streamlined. But you can have big games that could take all day. But the idea is, for the average game, even twice as big as what this one is, you'll be able to play many more games. I think you'd probably be able to get 3 games to every 2 of 8th edition, or maybe even twice as many. Over time, I think it could even go faster, just because a lot of these things are so much quicker and the rules are very much more basic. There's a lot more creativity to them, but it doesn't require 100 pages of rules to play a game. And clearly, so the idea, though, is that to take a couple minutes to talk about the framework of what you want to play with an opponent that you don't know already is not that hard. And let me go and preach a little bit more here, since people say I preach a lot. You're already doing it. When you go to a tournament, it's just understood because there's a list of comp stuff that's already there. If you go to, if you have a gaming club, you guys have a general understanding of the kind of play styles you have. If you meet somebody new, it just takes a minute or two to go over what kind of stuff you want to kind of rein it in, whether it's an org chart, or let's leave, name characters out, or whatever it is. It doesn't have to be perfectly balanced, but it doesn't take a lot of effort. It's pretty friggin' quick to rein in the crazy and just be on the same page. And for this demo, since I'm really trying to show, not only Ant what's possible, but I also want to get his input and see what kind of stuff he dreams up, or what kind of reactions he has to the rules and to strategy. All I did was say, because he asked, what kind of parameters? And I said, these are the parameters. He said, fine, boom. We came in with pretty much about the same stuff in terms of overall wound structure. So here we go. Moving on, he has the unit of men-at-arms. He has archers. He has the questing knights. The archers are about 30th, I think, strong. It's hard to see unpainted stuff that Anthony has. I'm really kind of surprised. But hey, Questing Knights sucked in 8th edition, so he didn't bring them, so he never had a reason to paint them. In the back there, he has a prophetess, or I think it's a damsel on foot, I forget. You can have it mounted. The other figure is a paladin. Now, you can take paladins mounted, but the only option is a paladin that is mounted with a standard bearer, apparently. Apparently, if you have another paladin that's not a standard bearer, he has to be on foot. That's one of the weird things that it does with Age of Sigmar, but they consolidated a lot of stuff. You could take paladins that are standard bearer paladins, and absolutely, they could all be standard bearers. You only get the benefit of one. My opinion is you take one, he's the standard bearer. You could take other mounted paladins. Just forget about the standard bearer rules, or use the standard bearer rules. It doesn't make a difference. You could do them. You could do it. You could have 10 paladins with standard bearers that are battle standards. Excuse me. Some of the redundancy where you could have multiple banners, standard bearers and units, kind of irked me. I don't know if it's because GW wants to sell more models or whatnot. You don't get any additional benefit. You could have all 10 of these guys have just regular, not battle standards, regular standards in this questing knight unit, and it wouldn't be any different than if you just had one, because you get to pick which one guy takes is removed or takes the wounds, and it could be the standard bearer who has some magical ability typically, or some standard ability in every unit, and it's different for every war scroll. That could be the last guy that gets removed. So it doesn't really matter if they all have it. I don't know why they allow for even multiples, but maybe it's just because they wanted to reduce the issue of anybody saying, "I'm trying to kill your standard bearer." So it doesn't make a difference. In any case, that's how we interpret it. It's a little weird, but maybe there's a reasoning for it. In any case, my army, again, mostly infantry. I have 20 units of zombies. My intention is to try and summon them. If you don't know the special rules for zombies, if you summon them in the hero phase, If they're within an inch of another unit of zombies, it doesn't say it has to be at the beginning of the hero phase. It just says anytime during the hero phase, you just declare them merged, and the more zombies you have, the better they are. They start out, if you have 10 zombies where there are 6s to hit, 6s to wound. Every 10 you get from there on can go to can get a +1. I don't know if it can go down naturally to 3 up, 3 up. But if you're near a corpse cart, I believe, if I remember correctly, within like 9 inches of the corpse cart, you get a +1 to hit. So zombies can be pretty scary when they're large numbers. They can die 6 of them can be returned at the beginning of your turn if they have a standard bearer, which is across the board with a lot of these units in the Varakine style. It just replaces the Van Hell's, the incantation of Nehek. It's just an automatic mechanic now. So, but it's not so breaking. You might get 1 guy, you might get 6. It's not as wacky as it used to be, but it's an automatic thing. And in addition, if the zombies slay any enemies as models removed, they roll a dice for each one, and on a 6 they actually return that, it's not that equivalent guy, but another zombie gets added in to the fold. So it's like the infection spreads. Really kind of cool. It makes zombies so much more interesting, but you have to have the right synergy to make that work. They are definitely worthwhile. I've played a bunch of games with zombie synergies now, and I love them. I love the idea that I got to paint more of them up. And these are my men-at-arms, zombies. So you'll see guys with like daggers sticking out of them, swords right through their chests, arrows in their skulls or whatever. And certainly lots of bleeding. They're not complete, but I'm going to make more. Then with skeletons, I'm going to have to really redo my skeletons, because skeletons also rock. For every 10 you have above the first 10, they get an extra attack up to 3 maximum. So you could have 30 skeletons, and anybody who's in range gets 3 attacks. Now, especially if they're spears, that's even crazier. And so that's just bonkers. But it's nice because these are fodder troops. These are troops that people didn't take very often. So it kind of worked well. And then you see my corpse cart, so I'm going to try and keep that close to zombies. Here's my converted up Grave Guard. So I only have them in right now in the Great Weapon format, where they do a little bit more damage. I think they're either roll to wound is a little better. They're better with shields now, ironically, because they have a better save. And saves are important here because units can kick out lots of attacks now. And if you can get better saves and mitigate Rens, it's a big deal. Rens reduces your armor save. I have about, I think the equivalent here, let's see, 10 and then 8. I have 18 of these guys. And I'm using one of my unit fillers, which, I'm going to use them as much as I can because I have them. And it's not a bad unit. They have decent armor. They're definitely going to be able to do some damage. And only 1 wound. For an elite troop in the Vampire Count's army, I would have thought that they would have had more wounds. But they only have 1, which is kind of sad. But hey, that's what the rules say. That's what the rules say. So the guy that looks like a White King is not. He's a Necrotect. With a Screaming Skull catapult, if you have a Necrotect nearby, you can get 2 shots. So you don't have to take 2 Screaming Skulls. You can take just 1, which is cool. And then just put the Necrotect in there and boom. If you take 2, that's obscene. And the Screaming Skull is okay. It's not great, but it's worth having. It's nice to be able to drop some rocks on enemy units. And then I have my Necromancer, 1 wizard, just to be able to summon up units. And we are using the theory, which I feel is a fact, but we are using the interpretation that War Scrolls have the rules. If the War Scroll says that you have for the unit that says all Death Wizards can summon this unit type, you need to have that unit on the table. If that unit is removed, that the spell is lost from that wizard. And I've had people come back to me and say, I completely agree, and more of them certainly than others. But I've seen people that are just absolutely opposed to that, which is ironic. Look, I'm a Vampire Counts player. That's my main focus, and I'm looking at it in the more logical sense. I'm not really worried about debating this any further. I feel this is the way to go. If you feel differently, that's fine. But the rules are very different across the different armies. There are certain specific areas in other army PDFs where it does say on casters that they can summon. VC do not. The War Scrolls for the individual units imbue the casters with it. It's very, very evident on that. These are not army books anymore. They're individual War Scrolls for the units that give them the powers. I actually talked about it with Anthony, and he was like, I can't believe anybody even thought of it differently. Well, you know what? It's not that he's an authority or I'm an authority. If you feel differently, play the way you want to. It's fine. Unless GW has an errata, this is how I'm playing it. And I don't know anybody that plays it differently. The only people that I know are a small minority of people that have been, said otherwise, that's how they're playing. You like it? That's the way you like it? Go for it. Summoning, I'm going to do a whole different video on that after I work it out. I don't find it out of control, though, with vampire counts. I find it very balancing with vampire counts. We'll get to summoning with other armies at another time. So, let's see, we go to, I think he gets the first turn. Let's see. Yes, he does. He gets the first turn, which is great because they don't have to pray now and give up the first turn. He has an ability with his prophetess where I think he can imbue a blessing of the lady onto a unit, which gives them the ability to either resist getting, taking mortal wounds on a 6 or something, or a 5, I'm not sure. His paladin can increase the bravery of one unit of the peasants, I believe, by 1 or 2, which is important because of battle shock. So whatever the battle shock result is, their bravery is boosted if the paladin's within range. And because of the way we're doing shooting, he's putting his prophetess and his paladin behind the block of knights. So their line of sight is blocked. I have my guys behind the hill. So we're really going to see how that applies to this game. So he moves up those guys. He shoots off. He's a little bit conservative about how he moved up because he wants to make sure he's within range with his archers, and he also wants to make sure that he is. He's not going to be able to allow me to charge in the following turn because he's not going to be able to get to me in the first turn. So you got to realize there's three phases here. There's 3 phases for movement. There's your regular move. There's the charge, and then of course there's a pile in. So always consider that. So the catapult rains down and he targets my Grave Guard, which is smart. They're the toughest unit I have, even though they have the smallest numbers. I lose 3. I'm not too concerned about that. I there's a good chance I could, just recover all 3 of those back in the following turn because of their banner. It's die 3, not die 6 for Graveguard. Then he opens up with shooting on his archers. His peasant archers remove, I think, about another 3 more or another 2 more. So now, I've lost a bunch of them, but that's okay. I have pretty good armor saves. 5 up, not great. If they were 4 up, I would have lost less, and I'd been a lot less concerned about this. So I was pretty happy about it. But then my turn comes, and of course I roll a 6, and I get whatever guys back that I needed to. It's actually die 3, so I got 3 guys back. So that was pretty cool. And then I put down my Inspiring Presence on my Graveguard because I don't want to have battle shock tests against them. Vampire counts have high leadership values, for bravery values rather, so it's harder for them to take battle shock tests, but it's certainly possible, especially if you take enough wounds. And I don't want that unit to be completely wiped out. So I move up my my Graveguard a little bit around this hill. You might see some shuffling stuff that might not look, copacetic, but I want to just let you know, in all my videos, in the same way I play on the table, if we take the simulated shuffling of these units. If I know that the front units can move to the side or move straight up, I'm not going to move them and then move the guys in the back where they were. I'm going to keep them on the tray. And as long as we know that nobody has moved further, the representation is the same. I'll just take guys from the back and then move them to the side, or take guys from the back and move them up front, because everybody's going to shuffle the way they need to shuffle. As long as the end result is the same, it's just easier to do that. And use your trays. As you can see, we're using our trays. It's going to, guys will get pulled off to the trays, but the next time they move, you can just plop them back on. Those that make sense, obviously, without going further than normal moves. So I move up those guys. I run my zombies into the woods. So they're now in the woods. And I want to get my skeletons in there. If I have enough skeletons right now, I can kick out tremendous amounts of attacks. The rolls to hit and wound are not great, but hey, still, lots of attacks mean lots of needs to roll armor saves, and those are going to have failed. So I use my my Screaming Skull and miss. It's a 4 up. We did it a little bit differently until we looked at the rules again. First, we were rolling for 4 shots because if there's all full crew, there's 4 skulls. But then, in retrospect, it looked like those were just the amount of wounds that you apply when you hit and wound. So it's like a 4 up to hit. I think it's a 3 up to wound, or it might be a 4 up to wound. -1 to the rend. If they don't make their armor saves, the amount of wounds that are applied depend on how much crew's left. So if it's full crew, 4 wounds, that's 4 individual guys dead, or at least 4 wounds off of models until they're completely gone. So we go to turn 2, and he rolls. This is where I like that randomness of who gets the first turn at each turn. And he got it. So he starts, shuffling he moves some of his guys up, but now he's moving some of his guys back because I'm now closing in. He wants to definitely take the time to bait me in and get more shooting off because he definitely has the advantage here in range. So he starts off with his trebuchet again and takes out again 3 more of my Grave Guard. And then opens up with his archers. Now, archers weren't so great, Bretonnian archers in 8th edition. Once in all of the archers now, and shooting is good. I don't think it's out of control yet, guys. I don't think it's overpowered. I just think that we're exploring this stuff, and on paper it looks really batshit crazy in some respects. But these guys, they only have a 20-inch range. I have my guys are out in the open. I was completely let them, I didn't expect that I would lose this many, and I probably should have tried to use my elite troops to avoid the archers in this respect. But knowing this, I wanted to test it out, see how it worked, and this is why I think that the Grave Guard with shields are better. Once per game, these archers can shoot multiple times. Some units will allow, if you have 20 or more archers, you can get an extra shot off once a game. In this regard, I don't know if it's if you need 20 minimum, but once per game, Bretonnian archers can shoot 4 times each. Once per game. That's a lot of arrows, and I think it's very fluffy. It works for me. You could just blot out an entire unit. He has all of these guys within range. That's 30 dudes. That's 120 shots. I don't care what your armor is. You're going to take some damage, and that's one of the equalizers of this game. You got big monsters with lots of wounds. Well, let me tell you something. Not just units like, if your core cannon fodder crappy units can whittle them down, but so can shooting. And as they get weaker and weaker, as they take wounds, they get weaker and weaker in terms of their damage. So when they're on 1 wound, they're not doing nearly as much as they're doing when they're on like 12 or whatever wounds. So he unloaded he blotted out the sun with his archers. And yes, I had like maybe 10 of these guys left. Goodbye, my elite units. So the way we're playing it, they're no longer on the table, and my next hero phase, I don't have a unit that gives me the battle scroll capability to summon these guys back. So I would definitely have, I should have tried to probably do that before I lost them, but it didn't happen. So I did summon some zombies, because the zombies have, again, that rule. And it doesn't say that you have to do it at the beginning. It's just in the middle of the hero phase. I'm in the middle of the hero phase. I summon off 10 zombies. If you roll high enough, you can get 20, which is nice. Now these zombies have grown even further, and they're going to get an extra +2 hit and wound, which is awesome. And then I move my skeletons. I want these skeletons to get up there as quickly as possible. I don't want them to get thinned out. Right now they're doing great. So I shoot with my my catapult. I do some wounds against his archers, which also further reduces his bravery by 2, but I think that's mitigated by the paladin being in range. And he loses a couple more guys to the roll for Battle Shock. And it's not, by the way, Battle Shock is not just close combat. It's blanket. If you take any casualties, unless you're immune for, with any special abilities, if you take casualties and you're susceptible to a Battle Shock test based on those casualties. They are cumulative. Shooting and close combat slain models apply to Battle Shock. So turn 3, he goes and moves his archers even further back, and he's putting his cavalry in a position to get a charge if I move those skeletons further up. I'm not worried about that. He does get some bonuses if he hits on the charge, but I still want to get these guys in there as quickly as possible before those archers do any more damage. And they can't get 4 times shots anymore, but they still can whittle down my guys faster than I probably can recover them. So he goes ahead and shoots, and as I just mentioned, he doesn't do a whole lot. I mean, he does 6 wounds. I make 4 of my tests, so I only lose 2 guys. I'm not unhappy about that at all, because I'm pretty sure I can get those guys back at the beginning of my next phase, which was exactly what happens. So I restored them, so it was a waste of action. I go ahead and summon another 10 zombies, so I have 40 zombies. They're at max now in terms of their bonus for what I have on the table. So they're going to be wounding, I think, on 3s and hitting on 3s, wounding on 3s, which is nice. And so they're the big hit and wound guys, and the skeletons are the massive attacks now. So I move a little bit further up, and then I charge in. And again, this looks a lot like 8th. I mean, I put my skeletons a little bit of an angle because, they move. The facing does not matter, and I don't want to hear about this wheeling stuff where people think wheeling and pivoting applies in this game. It does not. It's a measure from the point that you start to the point that you end, model to model. As long as nobody goes further than the model distance, it doesn't make a difference what your facing is. Now, in other circumstances, I would change maybe at least the front guys to face towards the unit that they've charged against. But, you know, again, we're trying to be expedient here. I didn't turn the whole unit sideways because that side is 4. But we move them in. There's no closing the door that's needed here. This is how it works. And when I shuffle in, I'll move some further guys up. And if I can keep everybody on the trays, I will. If not, I'll pull them off and then put them back on when needed. But the zombies, you can see they were in a kind of like a straight format where they had the 2 blocks, one in front of each other. Now they're side to side. I rolled high enough. I think I rolled like an 11. All the guys in the back were able to get up front. So I just basically pushed them off to the side, completely legitimate. All those guys were able to get where they were, and we just kept them on the trays. We both agreed to that. We didn't even have to really look at it and eye it. They were completely able to accomplish that. Because you got to realize, the guys in the front have to go near the nearest model, but there's a lot of nearest models. So they can kind of fan out. And the guys in the center that were in the back can move up into the middle. As long as they get into, they're not moving further than their move value, or rather moving, you know, the charge amount, there's no problem here. They were absolutely all able to get there. If I could probably have shuffled a few more off to the side even if I wanted to. But I had skeletons in the way on one side, and I just wanted to keep them on the tray at this point. So with pile-in, I took a few guys from the back and moved them to the front because the front guys would move in, and then everybody would move up. So that's how you do it. And you can keep your unit cohesion or your trays. So I killed off a bunch of the men-at-arms. And he fights back, and he kills about 12 of my zombies. Now, I had already put Inspiring Presence on my zombies because they're going to die in droves. They have no saves. So any wounds applied, I don't have any saving throws. So, hey, that's fine. I'll just grow them back. I'll summon another unit and merge them in. So then he was close enough for his questing knights to get a pile in, which is fine. I mean, I was actually going to be able to try to charge his questing knights actually, but I just didn't roll high enough. And you don't have to declare, by the way, the unit you're charging. As long as you have one unit in range, you can roll a charge. But say you have 2 units in range, and one is like 6 inches and one is 8 inches. If you roll a 9, you could charge at the unit that was further if you want. Pile-in is towards the closest enemy. Charging is whatever option within the number that you rolled. If you have more than one, you can actually charge in that towards that unit. So it gives you some options. There's certainly ways to play this. Excuse me. So his archers were close enough. I guess we're maybe moved to the next turn, and they all then piled in. I believe I took some, so I may have missed a picture here. I think he shot because we moved again to his turn after Battle Shock. Excuse me. And I lost a few zombies, and then throughout the combat, I lost some more, as you can see here. Lost some zombies, excuse me, some skeletons and some zombies. And then when my turn came for my zombies, I'm keeping unit cohesion here. They're all have to be within 1 inch, but I want to try and get more maximum so I can help out with the men-at-arms. I can get more guys so I can just get at least one dude slain on the questing knights. And as long as he's not immune to battle shock, he's going to have to make a test, and he might lose more. And then I'm not really worried about the archers. The archers are going to go down pretty quick. So I did exactly what I planned. I got at least one of his knights off. I don't think that he was immune to battle shock. And he went ahead. I think he used a different command ability, and then so he's gonna have to make a test now. Whether he fails or not, we'll have to see. He loses a few more archers to fight back, a whole bunch more men-at-arms. The men-at-arms are dying much faster than my zombies, but I am also double-teaming them. Then he folds in, he piles in with his questing knights. It's getting a little chaotic here, but we're still got a uniform way of looking at things. But he's able to get more guys from the back ranks. He either went to the side or wrapped around. Kills off a bunch more of my skeletons, which is exactly the way it should work. As you can see, again, there's only a handful left of those men-at-arms. And my zombies, I could probably summon some more. I could merge them. I could fold them in so that more of them can just swarm the men-at-arms or go after his questing knights. I might be able to grow some more back of those skeletons, but the likelihood is with questing knights there and the remainder of the archers, he's going to whittle those guys down and they're going to disappear and not be able to. He's going to wipe them off the board. So the way I look at this is that this is a victory for the Bretonnians. I move in. We're not there yet. I move in with my corpse cart because now I need to charge the archers to kind of help out. And you know, you could see I swarmed in with my reigning zombies, so I definitely have numerical superiority against his men-at-arms, but those questing knights are definitely going to lend a hand, and they're going to be hard to take down because they're armored and they have 2 wounds apiece. So they'll probably churn through the zombies faster than I can replenish them. Plus, as you can see, I lost all my skeletons. I've killed off a bunch of the archers, but that corpse card is not going to be. It might eventually kill off those archers, but again, I'll probably lose most of those zombies by the time we get to that. So we kind of ended it there. The way we looked at it was going to be a Bretonnian victory. Even though I have still summoning capabilities, we both had our catapults, which had a little bit of an impact on the game, but not a tremendous impact. They didn't wipe out entire units. They did some nice damage. His shooting definitely had an impact on on reducing my numbers as well as taking out my Graveguard. But then I was able to summon some more zombies to kind of even that score a little bit. Yes, not 1-to-1, but I summoned 20 more zombies on the table, and that's 20 guys that probably would have been shot if not for the Graveguard. Either way, the summoning wasn't out of control. We had a good game with some tactical capabilities. We used various different maneuvers, some feinting, some luring and baiting. It wasn't too chaotic. It wasn't just one scrum in the middle. And we didn't even have any scenario objectives here. That's going to be an important element to Age of Sigmar. Right now, the only scenario objective that we see is if sudden death comes into play. But as we're seeing with the scenario book that's coming out, there's a lot more that's coming down the road where there's going to be a narrative. There's going to be chains of scenarios that are going to have an impact. They're going to have objectives. You can create objectives of your own, but the scenario books are going to give us objectives. So take a look at that stuff. There's also terrain that has an impact. If you haven't seen yet, terrain like the portals. You put these 2 portals on the table, or even if you put 1 portal on the table, it's going to be a battle to try and keep control of that table, because if you move a unit through that portal, you have a risk of losing models. That's absolutely true. But then they can appear in other parts of the table, either where there's another portal or on a table edge. Those are the kinds of things that this game is about. It is not ancient history with fantasy elements in it. It is wacky. It's, you know, different realms and, you know, different planes of existence and floating in the ether. Not quite the bubble thing that we all heard rumors about, but not too far either. And, you know, there's a floating fortress of Sigmar somewhere out there that looks like a space station. Yeah, I don't like some of the aesthetic, but the games are fun. That's the most thing. They're not as simplistic as people were saying. So we had a good time. His comments were very positive. Obviously, his main focus, Anthony, I'm talking about, is towards the competitive sense. So, could this game be twisted? Not in the current incarnation. It would need a lot of work. There probably are things coming that will help with that. A year from now, let's revisit this and see. But, you know, we had a fun game. Victory to the Bretonnians. Good on you, Ant. And, you know, we both walked away happy, and that's how these games should be. So, I have a bunch more coming. I had a couple of games with another opponent locally that I've taped where we went up against the Stormcast Eternals, and I used totally different Vampire Count armies. So look out for a very ethereal heavy army, which, by the way, no magic items, no magic weapons in the game, so they're not immune to non-magical weapons. They have other benefits. You'll see that, but a very fluffy list in that regard, very themed, list in that regard. So I try up some different stuff. And I want to show a couple of different faces of what you can do with vampire counts, and then I'll eventually do an army analysis of that. I'm hoping to have Ant back to do an army analysis of Brett's. And I have a whole bunch of these that I'm scheduling with other people to do analyses of various different PDF army sets, go through the war scrolls and talk about tactics and whatnot. And if you have any requests, please feel free to put them in. If you have any questions or comments or suggestions or thoughts on rules or whatnot, that's fine. Just please recognize that I'm open to a dialogue. I really am. But we might not agree. So there's nothing wrong with that. We're all trying to figure this out. That's why this series is called Unlocking Age of Sigmar. We're all learning. We may have different viewpoints, but this is a new game and it's evolving. But it's not a bad game. It's a good game. There's a lot of fun to be had here. There's a lot of tactics and strategy that you can apply here. It's a much deeper game than people are giving it credit for. Give it a shot. If you have models, if you've collected armies, don't fret. It doesn't cost you anything. Before you go light them on fire, before you go throw them up on eBay or Bartertown or wherever else that you do that, try it out. Maybe you might find that you might enjoy this and maybe it might not be the main focus of your gaming going forward, but it'll be at least a tool in your toolbox for the wonderful armies that we've had for all this time. And if you want to keep 8th alive, that's good too. Hey, more power to you. I've said that before on this channel. There's nothing wrong with that. But more to come for Age of Sigmar and other things. Got a Mordheim campaign coming up in the next 2 weeks that I'm going to start really doing a lot of bat reps for. Got a lot more coming up for Age of Sigmar. Bolt action. Got a campaign that worldwide campaign is starting up again with Warlord Games. So this is not just Age of Sigmar channel. This is going to be a lot of different stuff. But of course, this series is going to be focusing on that game, and I hope you enjoy it. And hey, have a great day, everybody. Hello and welcome back. This is MC1 Gamer bringing you another